Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is important. It's really important because if you're an entrepreneur, you know that being an entrepreneur is not just a business. It can just about capture your entire life. In fact, being an entrepreneur, particularly being a Christian entrepreneur, is very much a lifestyle choice, and it affects everything, even your family. And how do you do that? How do you make 60 to 70 hours a week work? Sometimes you have to do that. At the same time, you have responsibilities to your family, to your church, to your worship community, to your community, to the people who you love and care for, and the people who depend on you. Well, from time to time, we're going to take some time to talk about that. The other day, I was talking to my good friend David McKnight, who will be the premier coach in helping you discover your strengths. And my friends, this is vital. You cannot be an entrepreneur who will make it unless you really are focused on not your weakness, but becoming strong in the broken places and knowing what you're strong at and what you are made to do. So we're going to talk with David, but we're going to switch it because all of a sudden in the midst of that, he said, I'm going to help you figure out how to read your child. That's right, read your child. And that's important, and that's vital, and that's what we're going to talk about today on the Jesus Entrepreneur Experience, and that experience begins right now. And again, on the Jesus Entrepreneur Experience, we're trying to better understand how we can be better at what we do, building a life, building a business, and expanding your brand, how to have greater influence. Well, you need to have a little bit of influence with your children, so I've asked our good colleague Dave McKnight to join us again. Dave is going to be our guy to help us discover our strengths. God wants us to be strong. As the Joshua prayer said, be strong, be courageous, be of good cheer, go. And so one of the ways we're going to try and be strong is perhaps in our relationships with children. So Dave, welcome back to the program.
Well, thank you very much, Dan. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, we're going to do a lot of work about discovering strengths, but in a conversation that we had recently, I really commented on the fact that you had given significant time in the last 20-plus years to raising a daughter. And you've been reasonably successful at that. Yeah. I'm reminded of an old Mercedes ad I saw some time ago. And it was a guy listing the reasons he deserved a Mercedes. And it was, well, he had survived 7 corporate moves. He had gone through 38,000 staff meetings. He went through all those things. And then at a little bit of a wistful end, he said, raised 4 children, 3 successfully. And that was quite an ad, but wasn't that also a commentary on our times?
Yes.
Well, part of being a successful parent is out of our control. It's in God's grace. But I'm just going to let you go for a while because I just want to listen because you told me something about our children being a book. And we need to learn how to read them. So with that, I'm not even going to converse. I'm just going to let you stand up to the microphone and tell me what that means, my friend. Go.
I will do that. I'm very happy to do that. I have worked with so many families and interviewed so many people trying to help adults understand their strengths and how they can use those strengths in their work and in their home. And yet what was getting missed was this. They all had children. They all had children that they were concerned about and wanted to help them, but many of them felt their hands were tied. You had the terrible twos and the awful teens and they had these things already mindset about what they were going to experience with their child. So I had a daughter that came along in my life 16 years after marriage. So I was, in fact, I was kind of ready to be a dad, and I looked forward to that opportunity. But as I watched other people and their concerns, I realized that when my daughter turned 16, I wanted her to still talk to me. So I began early on, because of what I was doing in my professional life, helping people understand their internal job description. Or as I say, we are all blessed with the design. There's an explanation for why you do what you do and enjoy what you do. There's a reason you want to plan the details of your vacation when your spouse wants to just go. It's not a sickness or ignorance or emptiness that makes you different. Your particular history of success and struggles are not random or accidental. The unique collection of talents and motivation has been the driving force in situations after situations, and it plays like a theme song. So I began observing my daughter because I wanted to know her theme song. And I just began watching her seriously. When I could observe her play by herself or with other children, when I listened to the words she used, I was listening for active verbs because I was literally doing that with adults and making that. I'd record their conversations and I'd transcribe them because I wanted to hear those active verbs and how they played out over and over and over again in the conversation. And why? Because that's what was important to them. So I began observing my daughter, age 3, age 4, age 5, and she began using some words that were, I realized, those are her words. Those are not my words. She's not parroting what I say. She's coming up with this on her own. And knowing these themes, knowing this part of her, that's crucial in understanding your child's design. And so I observed it in my daughter. And she began talking about the word plan or some derivative of that word. She always wanted to know what was coming down the road. Now, I like to operate more from the seat of my pants or just let's go for it and see what happens. That was never good enough for her at 4, and at 28 today, it's not good enough now. She's got to know the plan, and when she can get the plan in line, she's good. So we all have an opportunity for success, and it comes when we are in harmony with who we naturally are. So I wanted her to have a sense of who was she? Is she comfortable in her skin? Does she know the context in which she can do her best work? So observing this throughout childhood and into her teens, we continue to have that conversation over and over and over again. And she would say, Dad, I'm sorry, I just have to make a list. And I would say, honey, that's what you're made to do. You're made to do that because that's how you plan. That's how you organize. That's how you get things done. You make a list. The other day I walked up. She and her husband live with us right now. She's in law school. And I walked into her room that she studies in, and I looked, and there was, sure enough, there was a list on her desk of all the things she's working on. She's crossing things off. She's done this since the day she could write. That's because it's a part of her DNA. And that's what I want parents to understand. Their child is doing what comes naturally to them. And we look at them through our lenses of our own DNA. And so my DNA wasn't looking for that scripted out plan. I was looking at where was the opportunity, and let's just jump in. Now she would go, oh, there's an opportunity. Now I have to have a plan. And I need to organize that, get it put together, or it's not going to work. So she sees things very differently. So I began realizing I need to parent her through that door and not my door. And the instinct as a parent is to want to do it our way because that's what works for us. But our children have their own way. Now, you may have 3 or 4 kids and one of them matches up more with your way, and you think, I'm a successful parent here. Well, I had a situation with a client. The woman she was the owner of a business. She was a CEO. She had 3 children. And we're having a meeting one day at lunch, and we're talking about her office and her staff, and then she said, let's talk about my kids for a moment. So I said, well, go ahead, tell me. So she said, my oldest, I get him. He's just like me. My youngest daughter she goes along with what I have to say, so I don't push it very much. But my middle child, so aggravating. He never responds to what I want. He doesn't listen. And she was kind of fit to be tied. She says, here's an example. I would take my kids to a donut shop, and there's all these donuts, and the oldest and the youngest pick out the donut right away. The middle child can't pick it out. He takes his time, and we got to go. And he said, well, I haven't figured it out yet. So I said, so when he gets home, how does he play? Well, he plays by himself. He's up in his room. He's usually taking something apart and putting it back together again and looking at it. I said, your son is a process person. He's got to process things. So when you show him 100 donuts, he's got to process 100 donuts. If you show him a chocolate and a vanilla donut, he only has to process 2 things. Think about that. Help him see that. Help him realize that his natural way of doing things is great for him. Get him to own that. Well, later on in our meetings, I asked about how it was going. He says, he does exactly what you said. He processes things. I began to honor him in that and encourage him in that, and he's a happier kid. See, God gave each of us an opportunity for success and satisfaction in our schoolwork and in our career, our volunteer activities, in the relationships you have to engage in. There's a reason you do what you do. When I see people, I know they're operating out of their design and may not be doing what I want them to do, but it's their design. So I want to honor that and help them understand that. And our children are the same way. Children are operating out of their design. There's a reason one kid wants to play in mud puddles and the other person wants to always wipe his hands all the time. He wants to be clean. There's reasons they want to do. It's not a random thing. It's not an accident. They are doing that which they know how to do. And as parents, if we can honor what it is we're seeing, you'll begin to get your child to listen more to you, because why? Your child goes, my mom, my dad, they know who I am. And all of us want to be known. We're crying out to be known. We want to know that we have something. We want to know that we'll have significance in life. And it starts very early in childhood. So I take my daughter through school. I see that she's kind of competitive. I wasn't really aware of that. To some degree, on the athletic field I saw it, but I didn't realize that it was in the academic field. So I took her to school, to college. First day, I said, you're going to have a great success in school, but your strengths, and you know what they are, this planning thing you want is going to get you in trouble. You're going to miss out on most of college life because it kind of happens spontaneously, serendipitously, and you're going to want to know what to plan, and nobody in the group's going to know. They're just going to go do it. So I advised her to go find an organization within the campus where she could bring some of her planning skills. She could parachute in with that and help. Well, she came back and said, Dad, I'm part of the Student Activities Association where we plan 50 events throughout the year for the university. And she was a volunteer. The next year she was a director where she was in charge of four-day events. And then the third year she was in charge of the whole thing. She was the executive director of the whole thing. And it was probably one of the best jobs she'll ever have because it fit her design inside, and she was aware of that with what they were asking her to do. And so she's had that example in her mind. Now, that's when she was in her early 20s. Now she's in her later 20s, and she has an opportunity to intern at the U.S. Attorney's Office. And she'll text me, Dad, this is better than Christmas. I love it here. I don't understand why everybody doesn't want to be attorney, and especially in criminal. I said, honey, that's your design to play. You know that? Run with it. Because everybody doesn't want to be an attorney. Everybody doesn't want to do criminal law. Everybody doesn't want to be a prosecutor. But it so lines up with her. And that's what I want parents to understand. Your child is wonderfully designed with great opportunities. And the more they understand who they are and they can express it with confidence, yes, this is who I am, they have a great opportunity to do what they enjoy doing. See, my daughter right now is so happy she doesn't want to leave in the evening. And she's not getting paid a nickel. It's costing her to have this experience. She doesn't get paid, and yet she doesn't want to go home because she loves what she's doing so much. And that's when you know that who you are in your internal design is matched up with what you're being asked to do. That's what I want all children to understand. Yesterday I had an opportunity to sit down with the mother of a fifth grader, and she herself is a teacher. And she just finishing up her master's degree, and she discovered in the last quarter of her time, they looked at strength finders. And she was just on fire. She says, how can I get my kids to take this and to know this? Because I see it to be so helpful. And I said, I want parents to know that their kids are not books, they're not slates to write on, but they're books to be read. And every student in that classroom of yours is a book to be read. How helpful would it be if you had an insight into some of their strengths individually so you could speak to them as to knowing who they are? I have found in working with adults as well as young people, when I have some insight into that design that's put in them, just like their DNA physically, there's a DNA for behavior. And when I can tap into that and speak to that, people listen. People say, how did you know? How did you know that about me? Well, you told me. I listened. And it is a quality of listening. You have to listen, a disciplined listening, because we are built to kind of jump in and say our piece. And we're working on the next question or the next response, and we're not listening to what the person's actually saying. So when I often get involved in mediations between two parties or two individuals or two organizations, and I listen. I listen to what they're saying. And if I can pick up the verbs that are being repeated over and over again, I have great insight into where they're coming from. And I can begin repeating that back to them, and they begin bending their ear to what I have to say. And that's what I have found in working in marriage relationships and being counseling, is listening to both parties and what they're saying, and then getting that and repeating it back to them and watching their attention turn and the tension drop, and they begin. I had one situation where I had father came to me and says, can you meet with my wife and I? We're not doing well. I think she wants to divorce me. And we sat down at a restaurant one Saturday morning, and her first words out of her mouth was, I think I want to dissolve this relationship. Well, 2 or 3 hours later, I guess, we kind of got things back on the right track, and I just encouraged them to listen and honor the strengths of each other, because they knew them. Well, 6 months later, at the Christmas party at this company I was invited to, she came up to me and gave me a big hug and said, it's really working out well. They started to listen to one another and their design and honoring. So I'm asking parents, begin to honor the design you see in your 4-year-old. There's a reason they play the way they play. There's a reason they want to do it by themselves. The reason they want to do it with somebody else. There's a reason why their play is organized and stacked up neatly. There's a reason why it's messy. There's a reason why they take things apart. There's reasons behind that. Don't just say, oh, isn't that cute? Yes, it's cute, but it gives you a clue as to who your son or daughter is. And that's the thing I want parents to truly understand. It can be revolutionary. So at 16, did my daughter still talk to me? Yes. And at 27 today? Yes, she does. She says, Dad, you know me better than nearly anybody. And that's rewarding as a father, because I want her to know that I know her, and I want to encourage her in what she does and to get her to honor that which is inside of her so she can bring her best stuff out. You can't give what you don't already have. So if you've got something good, you have something to give. And that's what I'm trying to instill whenever I have that opportunity.
Thank you, David. The clock shows that David's been speaking about 16 minutes. Let me tell you something. This was one of the most important 16 minutes you might hear. I oftentimes say, if you listen and learn something for 20 minutes, and you do that every day, it'll change your life. So, David, thank you for that. I'm very, very grateful. We need to do more of that, but I'm going to do something else right now. One of my mentors taught me, if you hear something that's important and good, listen to it 7 times, and then it'll become part of you. So I would encourage you to take this little, hey, This wasn't even 20 minutes. And take some time just to think about it. Play it again, and then start doing it. Your child is a book. They'll tell you how to work them.
Yes, they will.
Why don't you read the book? Thank you, David.
You're welcome, Stan.
All the best and blessings, and we'll have you back. Now, wasn't that good stuff? Hey, make sure you go back and mark this. Listen to it again. Perhaps share it with your spouse, your partner, some friends. There's some incredible wisdom there, and thank you, David, for doing that. And obviously, we're going to have you back because he's one of the good guys who does good things, and that's what the Christian Entrepreneur Network is all about. So please keep in touch with us at tcenglobal.org, tcenglobal.org, and we'd love to hear from you and appreciate your support for what we do. Comments, questions, inquiries. You'd like to know a little bit more about how perhaps Dave could help you and your family and your business? Well, why don't you write to us at radioedge77@gmail.com, radioedge77@gmail.com. And I was in the cafe just today, and we were talking about being blessed, and we all said to one another, we said, God bless us all, everyone. Indeed, God bless us all, everyone. And we all at the table said, as we joined hands, Amen. And so may it be with you. All the best and blessings until next time, 4th of July. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Take care. Bye for now.